I'm very excited to see you at Cruel World, to see Blamage at Cruel World. I've never seen you guys before, and I actually now that makes sense because I did not realize that you had not played the US in 39 years. And I guess it sort of makes sense because I know that the band, the group Blamage, went on hiatus from 86 to 2011, but I'm kind of surprised that since 2011 you haven't made it over here in one way or another. How come?
Um, I'm not quite sure. I'm glad we're coming this time. I've got to say, it's already been an ordeal trying to getting ourselves over there at the moment, but we will be there and
Do
really
you
looking
mean
forward to this.
Do you mean because of like stuff with travel going on right now, like visas and that
Oh,
kind
it's
of stuff?
just so many things, yeah. So many things. From kind of visas to organizing gear and all that stuff. And but we'll be there and really looking forward to it. So.
I'm I'm very excited. So like there's obviously a lot to cover because this is sort of tied to everything is connected. The relatively recent compilation greatest hits you put out. And it's hits and all sorts of other things. It's 38 tracks, it's two discs, and I was reading all the press materials that were sent to me, and there was a line that stood out to me that said you were too good for pop music, but pop music wasn't always kind in return to Blamage. And I thought that was kind of an interesting quote that popped out of me because obviously, I'm from Los Angeles, so like you got played on K-Rock a lot here, and obviously you had a few songs that were big on MTV and some songs like Blind Vision was very big in the clubs. But those songs, those hits, I guess, don't really paint like the whole picture of what your group was about. So I'd love to hear what that quote exactly meant.
Um, I don't know that quote. So,
I'll read it to you
but
because I do.
well,
Blamage were too good for pop music, but it was not always kind to them in return. It's in your press materials.
oh,
I thought it was a good quote. I liked it.
okay. I should I haven't read it, so
Okay. Well, it's good.
um,
It's good. The guy
um,
who wrote it did a good job.
oh well, thank you. Um, the thing is, we did what we did. I mean, and we did it our way. We just did, you know, um, plowed a lonely, you know, furrow sometimes, I guess. But that's our choice. Um, and since 2011, I mean, God knows there's been, don't know, some 12 albums, something like that. I'm not, there's a lot of albums. I think there's more than that, including the other projects I'm lucky enough to be involved in. I just do what I want to do, really. And that's exactly what Stephen and I did in the first place. And we certainly embraced the opportunity to make pop music and more so to make dance music in the early 80s. I really, really enjoyed that as well. And I don't think we ever took ourselves too seriously. And having said that, there's there's light and dark in Blancmange. I'm aware of that. So we can go dark if we need to, but we can certainly have a lot of fun. And I'm hoping that's what people are going to get. It'll certainly be the intention. That's what people will get when we do Cruel World, and then we go on to do the other dates as well. So, it's going to be good fun.
I mean, dark pop, that's kind of what that era, a lot of that era, like, Depeche Mode, or even when The Cure went a little more pop with their synthy stuff, there was always a darkness to it. It seems like it was such an exciting time because, I've read about how you and Stephen first met at art school, and the first time you met him, he was playing, I believe, a vacuum cleaner, and then he played you guys played washing machines. Like there were no
Yeah.
rules then. Like, am I correct that when Blamage started, you didn't even play synthesizers in the beginning, right?
No, we used to try and make. We couldn't afford a synthesizer.
They were expensive.
Absolutely no way. They were really expensive. I think the cheapest when the kind of cheaper ones came out, like the Wasp, things like that. We even borrowed that initially, but we used to borrow them. Or what we used to do was make the instruments we had. We used to try and make them sound like we imagined a synthesizer might sound like, So I don't know, we just kind of use stuff from the kitchen around the house. I had a guitar that cost £18. I bought it off a friend at art college, and I'd made an amplifier when I was at school. So I still had that amplifier, and whatever you put in it, never came out sounding like what you'd expect. And that was used a lot on early Blamage recordings. And we used to use that for Stephen's keyboards as well, which were, oh God, really cheap organs and then effects pedals and things, you know.
It's like I said, it seems like it was a very exciting time when there were no rules. I've interviewed a lot of other synth pop. I hope you don't mind me using that term. I don't know if you even like that term to be. Forgive me for lumping you into the term synth pop for the purposes of this interview. I know that's not really painting the whole picture of what
I don't
you guys
mind.
did.
It's
Okay.
I like synth pop. I mean, you
Okay,
know,
cool.
we
Me
could
too.
I don't know we could go we're not heavy rock, are we?
Well, I've
I
interviewed a
think
lot of
synth pop
people.
good.
Yeah, I've interviewed a lot of
Yeah.
people who I guess you could call, even though they all sound different, synth pop, like Gary Newman, Howard Jones, Martin Ware, who obviously you guys recorded with, and
No, no.
all of them have all said sort of things like, "Oh, people thought we were crazy at the time. Like, what the hell? This isn't real music. Where are the guitars or whatever?"
Oh
Like,
yeah. Oh yeah.
did you get that reaction the day? What kind of reaction did you get in the day?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, absolutely. Well, um there was who's playing it? You know, who's playing that? Well, somebody's got to play it, you know, and somebody's got to program it. So it was the thing is, I quite like the idea of being a musical non-musician, which is where we came from. It was just a means of expression. I actually write on guitar. I'll show you. Just let me
Oh,
show you something though.
yeah.
That's I don't think you can see it, but that's a. Can you
Oh,
see that?
wow. That's where all the magic
Um,
happens.
yeah, that's some of the stuff that we use. So, and that's all different synths and things like that over there. But I still write on an acoustic guitar, or I'll write on obviously a synth as well. But in those days, we used to beg, steal, and borrow synthesizers if they were available. If we knew somebody who could lend us one, of course, we'd jump at the opportunity. And what we used to do with them was record some noises off onto cassettes. And then we'd spin them in the background to the other noises we were making. And eventually, you know, we cobbled together a few songs, and one thing leads to another. So by the time we were recording Happy Families, the first album, we didn't own a synthesizer, but we would knew people we could borrow them off, and our producer Mike Howlett had synths as well. So obviously we used, and we actually knew how to use some of those. So by that time, so we borrowed them enough. Second album, we owned quite a few synths by then.
Yeah.
So
You got
it went from no, we didn't have to borrow so many then, you know. So
But did people like, obviously something was happening. You had a lot of peers doing stuff. The fact that you got on that you, I imagine in England were introduced to a lot of people on the Some Bizarre compilation in '81, which had, Soft Cell and Depeche Mode and people like that on it. I mean, that's iconic. But so something was happening, but there were probably a lot of people who were like, what the hell is this? This is
um,
not proper music,
oh yeah. This is, I mean, but that kind of happened, and I didn't take any notice of it because I never wanted to be in. I didn't want to. If somebody had said to me that's proper music, I probably wouldn't have done it. I wanted to do something that was kind of not intentionally different, but I just didn't want to be in a conventional band.
Yeah.
And if you were working with Stephen, there was no way anything was going to be conventional. So it was always going to be let's go at an odd angle at this, and I think that's why we got on as well. We just wanted to try different things, and we were amazed that we were amazed that I think a record company even let us put a record out. It was just we go, wow, we've managed to make a single, you know, because not that long before we were writing songs called "The Problem Sorted" when my mother pulled up the radishes. Now I can't imagine
It's a good title. That sounds like
under
a title that Fall Out Boy or like one of those emo bands would
yeah,
have, like
well,
one of those long
you
titles.
know,
So you got
leek and potato soup was another one. You know, so to get from that to a point where we have God's Kitchen and I've Seen the Word as a double A side for our first single. If that had been the only record we'd released with a record label, we'd have just gone, all right, let's get back to work now. That was good fun, you know. But anyway,
wow.
it carried on for a bit longer.
obviously. So, the dynamic you had with Steve, I think it's interesting. You know, there was a book I read, you probably know of it. It's called The Music. Sorry if I don't have the title right. It's Music, The Music Machines Make. It's like a whole anthology about synth pop.
I do know that. Yeah.
Martin Ware, I believe, wrote the forward to it. And you know, I noticed that there were a lot of like duos where it was kind of a like it was a thing to have duos. Obviously, Soft Cell, who I just mentioned, OMD, Tears for Fears, if you count them, Yazoo and Erasure, of course, Pet Shop Boys, Rhythmics, and even like The Cure for a while when they were, you know,
Yeah.
just doing their kind of more synthy thing. So, like, what is it about the duo dynamic, or at least in your case, that sort of like kind of lent itself to this era of music that was being made on machines for the most, or on vacuums? Vacuums a machine though.
Well, I can't say it got rid of confrontations within the band because it didn't. Because that, in a way, the chalk and cheese between me and Stephen was also the catalyst for creativity as well. It
Mm.
was a great thing, particularly when it was constructive, fantastic. When it starts getting negative and gets destructive, then that's difficult. But it made a lot of other decision making really straightforward because we didn't have the bass player to ask. We didn't need a bass player because we could program a synth to do it, or one of us could record it. Or I don't know. I played on a, and then we put it on tape. And a drummer, we never entertained having a drummer. And the first time we had a drummer in Blamage, other than in the studio to do overdubs, was when we came to New York. When we played in America, rather, on a small tour, and we were asked by the record company to consider. And it goes back to that question about being, what do people think of you as a synth band? And so we came to America and we had a drummer play with us. So people kind of think, I don't know whether it was a good idea or not, but we just thought it would be, they thought it would be a good move for us to have a drummer. I look back at it and I think, you know what? And this is no disrespect to the drummer because he's a fantastic player, but I think we should have stuck our necks out and just gone, no, we're doing it like we did the first time. Because the first time we came to America, we played and put a tape machine on in the middle of the
That's
stage.
punk rock to me. That's
Well,
rad.
we should have done that again, but we didn't. We played with the drummer the next time. And we still
So
had the backing track. So, I mean, we still had the kind of, you never saw a bass player on stage. So, because we had the bass synth playing
yeah.
from a tape machine that was synced to what Stephen was playing. Oh, it's just bonkers. Anyway.
So you've sort of alluded to the friction that you and Steven had that led to the split in 1986, which, you know, if you're gonna go out, I kind of feel like didn't you kind of go out after playing Royal Albert Hall, which I just was at actually. I was in London
Hmm.
in March and I went to see the who had some friction of their
Oh,
own.
did you?
I was at the
I
so
saw
yeah, so apparently Royal Albert Hall friction can happen, but
that.
basically, I guess I'm asking open-endedly, and I'm sure it's a story you've told many times, so I apologize if I'm asking you to retell it. But like, what basically happened? Because, you know, I get, you know, things seem to be going well for you, all the kind of groundwork that you and your peers had laid out in the early 80s, sorry, it was happening. You know, the sound that was the sound of the mid 80s, and then at Royal Albert Hall, it seems like that was the last straw for you guys, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it was, but it was the last straw for me. And but there had been other things going on before that Stephen and I had discussed, and I think it had been working towards an inevitable conclusion. I think we were both jaded by the machine being the record, kind of the need for us to be in the machine, producing another single that was more successful than the last one and another album. And I I just got absolutely, I didn't know how shattered I was by it. And we weren't even anywhere near the top of the bloody thing, were we? But we were in it and it was relentless. And I think I talked about, the beauty of having the two of you is sometimes it's just like, well, you're a compact unit. It has its positive sides. It's if you're going to have communication, it can be really direct. You don't need to ask the bass player or the drummer, for example, what they think about it. We just go, I'm programming the drums. Let's sequence the bass part and get on with it. It was that kind of thing. But when it started getting, um, if it was destructive, it was very direct, the destructiveness between us. And we'd been, I mean, we were in each other's pockets all the time, every day practically, for that period of time. And it becomes like a marriage. It's just like, well, but I don't want to be married to Stephen, and he didn't want to be married to me. So, and we had a couple of conversations, and to cut a long story short, I walked off stage at the Royal Albert Hall, having done this gig, and I just said to Stephen, I don't want to do this anymore. I really don't want to do this. And the lovely thing it was that he kind of respected that. And I think in us discussing it like that, instead of, because we'd had a spats and kind of flare ups, without a doubt, there'd been a few hissy fits, but so we didn't have any more. The wonderful thing about it saved a friendship. And that was far more important than keeping Blancmange together for us. So
Oh,
it saved the friendship.
that's
And
oh,
so that friendship endures.
and it still does to this
Yeah,
day.
of course. Yeah.
So you feel it was the right decision for not just the time, but like in the long term, do you feel it was the right decision?
Yeah.
Because, a bit of a loaded question, but you've probably been asked it before. Like, do you think Blamage should have been bigger than they were? You made a little joke how you were not at the top of the heap, you just said that. Like I imagine there's lots of fans of yours who would argue that you should have been or could have
Well,
been at the top of the heap.
that's lovely of them to say. I'm happy to have done what I did. I'm very proud of being able to make the music that Stephen and I did. I'm very, very pleased to be able to make new music as I do on my terms now, whether it comes out on the wonderful London Records or it comes out on my own label. I just feel, I mean, to be creative and have that freedom is fantastic, Lindsay. So I'm a lucky man. And as for, I'm not really bothered. I mean, I suppose it would be nice had they had more, had Blancmange had more success, but I'm quite happy doing what I do.
Well, I'm glad about that. I just meant more
That's
like
it, you
I don't know
know?
if the band gets talked about as much as some of the other bands I've actually just mentioned in this interview. And I looked
No.
back at 1985, the year of the last Blamage record. I see what else was kind of, at least this is American perspective because I grew up in
Mm,
America. But I look at what was doing well on MTV and radio out in the charts out here, and like it was The Cure had their Head on the Door. That was a very big record. That was
yeah.
kind of their breakthrough record here. Tears for Fears were like the biggest band. Simple Minds were huge. The Breakfast
Mm,
Club thing had happened. New Order, who were playing headlining Crew World, were doing very well.
yeah.
Love and Rockets started. The Cult, the list goes on. Echo and the Bunnymen, all of those bands were like starting to make actual inroads in America. So it's interesting that you kind of, hung it up at least for 25 years at that time. And I'm not saying, you live with regrets or anything, but I just am wondering if the timing is interesting to me. And do you ever wonder, I guess, what could have been if you had just grinned and bare it and dealt with the BS and just white knuckled it and just even though you weren't happy, you just kept
Yeah, of
going.
course it's crossed my mind, but I'm not really one for nostalgia. I kind of said this a few times, but I'm more interested in for it's really difficult because the world's in it is this is really really difficult times, but we have no choice but to move forward. So I'm interested in tomorrow and what that might bring. And from a selfish point of view, I wonder what it might bring creatively. So, but of course, yeah, I have looked back from time to time, but all those names you mentioned, they all deserved exactly what they achieved. I think it's fantastic. And I like a lot of those bands. For Blancmange, I think what happened was when we split, had there was a lot I mentioned about the kind of machine that we felt we became a victim of. I mean, it's our fault. I mean, as much as it's not, you could have stepped off earlier, we could have carried on, found a way around it. I think it had got to the point where, for example, we had I mean, my feeling is I got out at the right time. I'm so pleased I stopped doing it. I really am. And it probably saved I'm as, I wouldn't say I'm sane, but I would be less sane had I carried on doing it.
Right.
And so, and I've also mentioned the friendship aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
We were with Sire Records in America, and at that point, and we made it for our third album, which is a very difficult album to make. I think everybody thought the second album would be tough for us, and yet the second album for us was good and had a it did quite well, and uh, uh, the third album we had a song on it called "Lose Your Love,"
Hmm.
and the record company, London Record. This is my memory of it. London Records and Sire decided to have a chat, and we ended up making a video in New York. We hired the Cunard, the old Cunard shipping terminal, and it's bonkers. This is when videos it ended up costing fortunes, and this was a fortune.
Who directed it?
And
Was it like a big director?
I it's big
Oh,
um, Rib Chin Ski.
the guy who did art.
Um,
I know you mean the guy who did Art of Noise, Close to the Edit.
yeah, all that stuff,
That which,
and
yeah.
Yoko Ono, and so anyway, Spig, wonderful chap, a great guy, got this fantastic idea for this video, and the video is great fun. The video is fantastic fun to make. The record company were both sides of the Atlantic were really pleased with it. Um, we This is the kiss of death moment. So we ended up in the studio with the wonderful Peter Collins, who sadly passed away not too long ago. A wonderful, wonderful producer, a lovely man. And as we walked out to the studio, we were in Psalm East. It's quite a famous studio in London. We walked out of there, and he said at the end of the week, he said, "I think you've just written your first number one." And I just went, Stephen and I went, "Oh, please don't say that. This is just not one I want to hear." And he said, "Why?" He said, "I just think it's a really, really good song." So, of course, the record company really liked it as well, and we're pleased that they like it. So they're going, "Right, we'll make a big video." So they made the big bad video for it. And on its first showing in this country, in the UK, it had one showing and was banned. And I'll say it was this, but don't quote me. I think it was something like for inciting violence in the home, unquote. I mean, don't quote me. I can't remember exactly what it was
Well,
banned for.
but I know the
But
video. I've seen it. Aren't you just kind of like breaking,
smashing stuff up.
smashing stuff?
It's slapstick.
Yeah.
It's slapstick.
Certainly, I've seen
And
more, offensive or controversial videos.
so it was banned.
Oh my God.
So obviously, I don't know the whole story. What I know is the artist's story
Yeah.
and what we became aware of. But of course, the knock on from that is if we can't get that on television when MTV or particularly our terrestrial stations aren't willing to show it, we're going to have difficulty getting a plugger to persuade the radio to kind of go with it. We then had a massive fallout with Stephen fell out with a Radio 1 DJ when we were doing a charity event, and it was hysterical, but the moment was saved by Suggs and Chaz from Madness,
Oh, as
who I
one, yeah,
who
Suggs
we
will
know.
save the day. Tell me what
And
happened. I mean, now I'm
oh
intrigued.
dear, there was a big barney between a Radio 1 DJ and
Okay.
Stephen, and let's say several bunches of flowers had to be sent to the BBC. And I don't think that rectified the issue. So this is all part of a story, and there's already tension. There's lots of other
Yeah.
things going on. But that song was the one that if anything, off that album was meant to be the one that kind of goes, okay, hello America, we're going to come back
Aw,
and we're going to do more dates, and it just. So now, if you see that video, you're going to see it on Flight of the Navigator. That's where it's on, the Disney film.
that's hilarious that it
So,
was
you
once
know,
banned and now it's in a Disney film. That's hilarious.
so it's on a Disney film.
Did
And,
do you
you
play
know,
that song live or do you like now? Like will you play it
I'm not,
for
no, funny enough, I'm not, even though, even
Okay.
though I
I was
was
just
told,
curious.
even though somebody told me the other day that it did quite well on Billboard.
Well,
Dance, I can't imagine it being a dance floor song, I'd forgotten. So, no, we will be doing plenty of the old ones. Obviously,
well,
Blind Vision, Living on the Ceiling, stuff like that, of
will
course,
you be doing the
uh,
ABBA song? I wore this for you because
uh,
I've seen ABBA Voyage in London twice, and you guys were ahead of the time doing an ABBA cover in
oh,
1986, 85,
oh,
like that. It wasn't hip or
yeah.
84. I don't know the exact year, but it
84, we did it.
okay. Well,
84.
what Vince Clarke and Erasure did a whole ABBA album, and now everyone loves ABBA. But in like that year, I don't think it was probably hip yet to like trumpet your love for ABBA like that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think your cover of The Day Before You Came in England, at least, even charted higher than ABBA's version. So I have questions about that
Okay.
cover. Well, first of all, are you going to do it at Cruel World
Well, we did
or
it in
any?
rehearsals today,
Oh yeah, I'll
but
take that as a yes.
I don't know. I don't know about that. So I'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
Well, I'm
It's not
vol
exactly a. It's not a festival. I'm not sure it's the right song for festival. It's not. It's not our. We are one of the acts on there. I'm not
okay.
sure whether I would put in the set.
Fair enough, but I do, since we're talking about music videos, I know you got Agnetha from ABBA. She's in it for a minute. She's on the train, and I believe
Yeah.
that ABBA were fans of the song. Like, didn't they even like write you a letter saying like, thumbs up or whatever? So like, I'm
Yeah.
curious how, well, first of all, how she got to be in the video, but like, the whole ABBA thing is very, I'm a huge ABBA fan, obviously. And if you haven't, I don't know if you live in London, but if you haven't seen ABBA Voyage, I highly recommend it. It's amazing. But yeah, it was kind of ahead of the time to do an ABBA cover in 1984. I don't think like people were even liking them ironically yet, probably at that time.
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, Stephen and I always loved ABBA. I was brought up on ABBA through the '70s, and I absolutely love them. I really, really like them. So we um, we went on holiday after Living on the Ceiling was a hit for us in this side of the pond, and went away at Christmas because we were going to be coming to New York to work. So they said the record company said take a bit of time off. So we went to the Canary Islands, and I went away with Stephen and his partner, myself and my partner, and Vince Clarke and his then partner.
Oh my
Um,
God, how
and
awesome.
we sat around a pool with an early Walkman on cassettes, and one of the cassettes we had was ABBA, either the singles or the first 10 years, I can't remember. On there, the last or penultimate track on one of the cassettes was The Day Before You Came. And Stephen and I said, round the pool, we said, we're going to do an ABBA song. At that point, Vince said, and I'm still in touch with Vince. In fact, we're doing some work together on a covers album, but hopefully that'll see the light of day. But he said, I'm going to do I'm going to do an ABBA song as well, which he did as well later. But we went back, and the record company were aghast. They were kind of, okay, but you are Blamage. Yeah, you got to go and do what you got to do. Go on. So off we went and did The Day Before You Came, and had a great time. So we sent the mix off to ABBA and their record company, and they wrote back to us. You're right. They wrote back to us, and I mean, we couldn't quite believe it. Humbled that they liked what we'd done. We even changed some of the lyrics. A couple of words or a different thing. They didn't mind. They was, great, okay. And then they said, well, look, why? The record company said, well, if you want to use some of our video in yours when you make it, go on then.
Okay.
So Agnetha isn't in the video
Oh, I
on the
see.
same train. What they've done, what they did, they allowed us to use their video in our video. Can you imagine that happening now?
It's pretty,
Can you
yeah, that
imagine
wouldn't
the
happen.
solicitors, the lawyers would be
Yeah.
out, wouldn't they? They'd be going bonkers, you know? So anyway,
That's, I mean, it's still a very ringing endorsement. And also, I do want to say, even though some people might have thought back then it was a weird cover to do, or might even think now it's a weird cover to do. I mean, that's like one of the darker ABBA songs. It was the song they made before they
oh,
hung it up for 40, 50 years. So,
it's why I and Stephen loved it so much. It is dark, and we kind of we go down that route. Um, I must say that when we play at Cruel World and the other dates, I'm going to be on stage with Tara Bush. So from I Speak Machine, she's going to be
oh, cool.
playing and singing. She'll be playing the synths and singing. So I'm so excited she's going to be playing with us. And we've just been chatting actually as we run through things here. So it's going to be incredible. I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. And the other dates as well. I haven't been to San Francisco for a long time. I've never been to Denver. And obviously, I've been to New York, and I've been to New York since Blamage last played there. But I'm looking forward to going back and having a look round, and also playing there. And then we're obviously off to up to Toronto to play at Mississauga as well. So there's lots of things to look forward to for
Absolutely.
for
And
Blamage.
I know you've been prolific during the time that Blamage was on hiatus. I know you've been prolific doing other things. And I do want to say, I don't think you're doing this in the US. I think you might only have done this in the UK, but I do think it's kind of badass and also an example of your prolificness that didn't you tour opening for yourself? Like, wasn't one of your other
Yeah,
projects, The Remainder, opening
yeah,
for yourself? Like, The Remainder
yeah, yeah.
needs to play at Cruel World. Like, let's make that happen.
Oh God, that would be fantastic. Yeah, that with Finley and Liam, just amazing. That would be great. And maybe Fader one day. Who knows? And get some more Fader. We're working on a Fader album at the moment, Benj and I. So
Oh, very
yeah,
cool. Well, I know I
yeah,
need to probably let you go because you have things to do to get ready to come over to the States. But can I
yeah.
ask you, you mentioned, speaking of prolificness, that you're working with Vince Clarke on something. So my ears immediately did that. What is that project?
Well, we started it a while back now, but so Vince and I have known each other since um, the days of Depeche Mode and Soft Cell. And who else? They were all on the Some Bizarre album with Illustration and Naked Lunch and all those
Yeah.
other bands like The as well, to name a few. So we have known each other quite a while, and we got chatting a number of years ago and started exchanging ideas about a covers album. So the songs are all written and partly mixed. So I'm back down to Benji's, I think next week to mix some more. So the three, well, Benji and I will be mixing some more of those and sending them over to Vince to have a listen. So, but the three of us have been working on those for a number of years.
What covers are did you do, or what can?
Oh,
I mean,
well, that'd be saying, but
yeah. What?
there'll be there's some unusual ones in there. There's some unusual ones in there.
All
Yeah.
right.
All will be revealed.
All right. Any ETA, like general idea of when it will come out?
No, not yet. Obviously, it'd be nice if it was sooner rather than later because we've been working on it for a while. But you got to get these things right. So when the time's right, hopefully it'll see the light of day, Lindsay. So
Well, well, timing is important. It took a long time for Blamage to come back to the US, so I'm glad you are. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you at Cruel World. And, if you want to do the ABBA song, it's fine with me. I will not complain. I might wear this to Cruel World so you can see me in the crowd because everyone else will be in black. Um,
okay.
so you'll find me. But it was really, in all seriousness, it was really lovely chatting with you, Neil.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you so much.